All right, welcome to this afternoon's work session. We'll begin with an overview of this year's budget process, kind of rehash some things. To start the budget process, the Chief Financial Officer sends out an email to all department heads and constitutional officers and others who receive funding from the county. This happened on February 20th. On February 27th, there was a budget kickoff meeting for the staff. On March 4th, the Board of Commissioners established 2 commissioners and 1 alternate to serve on the Budget Committee. On March 21st, all budget requests were due to the Finance Department. From April 3rd to the 22nd, the Budget Committee heard from all department heads, constitutional officers, and any other entity that received funding from the Board of Commissioners. The Budget Committee makes a lot of cuts during this time, going line by line through the request. On April 15th, there was a work session about the JDA's budget. On April 29th, there was a work session for the DA's office budget. On May 6th, we held a work session on the budget. On May 20th, we held another budget work session. At that time, I asked the full board if there was any more cuts they wanted to make. No cuts were offered at that time. On June 12th, there was a public hearing on the budget. Nobody spoke, even the public. There was nobody from the public. On May 20th, we held another budget work session. I asked the full board again if there was any more cuts they wanted to make. Oh, I already did that. All right. On June 24th, we had a special called meeting to set the budgets for the Solid Waste Authority, the curbside, and the overall budgets for the county. During that meeting, Mr. Smith made the motion to approve the solid waste and curbside budgets, and they passed unanimously. On the main budget, when we got to that subject, I proposed some more cuts, and those cuts passed. I asked if the board, if there were any more cuts they wanted to make, at which time Mr. Goodman proposed cutting funding for the replacement airport. Mr. Smith seconded Mr. Goodman's motion, but the motion failed with no discussion, 4-1. Only Mr. Goodman voted against funding for the replacement airport. Mr. Turner then made a motion to fund the project manager position at 75%. Mr. Smith seconded this motion and it passed. I then called for any other cuts. Hearing none, I then asked if there were no other changes, can I get a motion to approve the amended budget? At this time, Mr. Smith made the motion to approve the budget as amended. The budget was adopted by a vote of 4-1, with Mr. Goodman voting against the budget because it contained funding for the replacement airport. At any time through this process, including the meetings and work sessions, anyone could have made suggestions for cuts to the budget. At any time during this process, if there were any potential wasteful spending, that should have been brought forward immediately. Today will be our 7th time, again, our 7th time before the public to come forward with any items to cut or discuss. There have been public comments made about waste and poor planning, stating that the board should be focused on unnecessary spending. However, at no time during the budget process, nor at any meeting before the public, were there any major items brought forward except Mr. Goodman not wanting to fund the replacement airport. There were a few cuts as noted before, but these savings were not great amounts. To this day, no one has come forward with anything about wasteful spending or just what was poorly planned. I wonder why not. There are several projects that are planned that remained either not funded or underfunded. The jail is a major partially funded project. With no tax increase this year, the jail project may be delayed, but because it is a SPLOST project, it will be built at some time. In case the people have forgotten the wishes of the former sheriff and jail administrator about the jail, they wanted to use it as a revenue source, housing inmates from outside the county. They wanted a police academy, a 600-bed jail, an auditorium the size of the one at the high school, a training center, a fitness center, an indoor track on the second floor for the guards, a maintenance area for the sheriff's vehicles, a nursery or daycare center, and there was also a driving course that was a SPLOST project that the former sheriff asked for as well. These were all reduced to just a 300-bed jail and the much-needed office space. But this will still cost us $50+ million with only $10 million coming from SPLOST 9. DA funding, that's still an unknown. The county parks, they need upgrades. With the county taking over park maintenance from the contractor PSA, there's now a shortfall in funding because we didn't increase the taxes. So do we borrow funds from the general fund and pay the general fund back with a tax increase next year on the unincorporated area? That's a question we've got to answer. There's bids out, rebuild the soccer multi-sport complex. We have a work session scheduled just for that topic on a later date. Animal control is an unfunded project at an estimated cost of $3 million. I proposed that because at the time the public seemed to want it. Now it seems the public don't want to fund it, so we can possibly cut this completely or postpone this project. EOC 911 building, it's mostly SPLOST funded, but it must be done at some time. When these projects were funded, or planned, that was before COVID. As we know, COVID has increased prices on everything. Public Works building, it's mostly SPLOST funded, but again, it must be done at some time. JDA funding. Mr. Goodman wrote an article in the local paper calling for an increased funding for the JDA. I believe Mr. Smith also called for increased funding for the JDA in social media posts. However, a large group of the public doesn't seem to happy with funding the JDA more. But an increase in funding probably would have had come from increased taxes. So will the JDA budget remain flat? That's another question. All these projects and other parts of the counties and other projects are part of the county's strategic plan, a plan in which all the current board members worked on this past January. The plan is what drives the staff works throughout the year, and it informs our meetings as well. Each and every year, we update this plan. And each and every member of this board worked to develop this plan this year. This is when we as a board plan and prioritize projects, not only for the coming year, but long-term as well. So that leads us to what we want to do tonight. Basically, what does the board want to discuss first? I'll open it up. Anybody?
Can we discuss the comments that you just made?
Sure.
Okay, so to say that nobody offered any cuts, you say that you've gone between April 3rd and the 22nd, and you heard from every department head in this budget committee meeting that wasn't open to the public. The commissioners that weren't privy to those meetings were given an hour, where 50% of that hour was probably some sort of presentation. It's hard when we're not privy to the same information that you are. We don't know what these department heads we don't know what these department heads said was most vital, right? So when you're asking us to offer cuts, we don't even know what we're cutting.
You're given a budget book, or should have been given a budget book, the same budget book that the committee had.
That looks like this?
No. No, that is not a budget book. You had the information, you offered no cuts, but you go on social media saying, where is it? Saying that there's misspending, poor planning. Where is it?
Poor planning was in the SPLOST project list that you and I believe Mr. Martin chaired for the county when those meetings were happening. And also you said that, we have the strategic plan and that's supposed to be our guiding light and everyone from the board worked on it. but you're not saying that everyone from the board disagreed, which very much happened. Not everyone was in agreement when we put that strategic plan together.
That,
SPOS was an open meeting.
Yep.
Correct. No, that's where I saw you and Mr. Casey, you know?
yeah, and you said nothing at the meeting. Mr. Goodman was at the meeting. He didn't say anything.
So as an unelected citizen, I wasn't privy to participate in those conversations.
You were a commissioner-elect at the time.
Was I just supposed to trample on Commissioner Reddick's authority as commissioner for district?
No?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think you stopped what you were going to say, that I was at the meeting, and what was my contribution at the meeting, the strategic planning committee?
The strategic planning?
Yep. Isn't that what we were talking about,
Well, that's part of it.
did I say anything or not?
Oh, yeah, you participated in it.
Okay, because I thought you were going to say that I didn't have anything to contribute to it.
Oh, no, no.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Because I did. And I'll go ahead and expound on that. What I contributed mostly was that we don't need to spend $5 million on an airport. And I'm,
And that was noted. You might not have been in here when I said that, but I noted that during the budget, when we were talking about the budget, you were not in favor for it, and you did not vote for the budget because of that.
thank you very much.
So, anything else?
I just wanted to highlight, when you say we didn't have any cuts to offer, it's because we weren't privy to the same information that you were, Mr. Chairman.
I don't believe that for a minute. You had months to ask questions. Did you ask any questions? You didn't ask me any questions. I don't think you asked staff any questions.
If those meetings have been public, I could have heard what these department heads had offered to the budget committee from the get-go and been just as informed as you.
Again, you could have asked questions. You did not. So,
I shouldn't have to.
well, we can't spoon feed you. So, anybody got anything else?
On those lines or anything else?
What's that?
Just along the lines you're
Oh,
talking about?
whatever, anything budget related. Anything.
But the only thing is that I have is the email, or not email, but text message that I got. And I don't know if this is the appropriate time for that or not. It's with the, well, I'll read you the email. Basically, it says, hold on, I gotta go find it. I've gotten another one since I've been here. This one said, what's it gonna take to get an audit done on the county credit cards? That's part of the budget. And I didn't know how to answer that. I still don't know how to answer it. I did call up here and I talked with several people. And response I got was basically that we don't audit them every month, but we reconcile. Every time someone uses a P card, they bring it back in, they state where they've been, they bring back all their receipts, and then it's reconciled at that point. And then it's audited at the end of the year. And it's audited by outside professional people that tell whether we did anything inaccurate or inappropriate, and those two things. So I wanted that to come up in this meeting. I did not call this individual back. I wanted to hear what you guys think about it, what you think in this area.
Okay, our finance department also looks at those credit card statements, and they compare the receipts to the credit card statements to see if they're valid.
Mm-hmm.
They do that for every P card transaction, whether it's a board member or a staff or anything like that.
Okay. And I basically was told that these are big stacks of things. I know when I went to school, I went on a P card. That's a purchasing card. You use that card to pay for your motel, your car if you've rented one, and your gas. I don't think, most of us do not pay for food out of that because you got to eat anyway. I don't know if the rest of you guys did that, but I never used a county card to pay for food because I just assumed that if I were home, I'd have to buy my own food anyway, so I didn't charge the county for those kinds of things. I personally, just to be completely honest with you, do not like to put all this stuff on Facebook because I think it's inaccurate. I don't think it's that way. I did call the sheriff and talk to him about the $800 charge that somebody's put on Facebook. And basically, that's a reimbursement, and that was, what's that day, what do they call it? Can someone tell me? Hands across the border. It's when the sheriff's office from Florida and the sheriff's office from Georgia, they get together, and they bought apparently $800 worth of Chick-fil-A. And out of that, they got reimbursed for that particular money. Those kinds of things, I think, don't need to be on Facebook. I actually think we need to discuss them here, right now, eyeball to eyeball, face to face, instead of putting our stuff out on Facebook and it being inaccurate and not true. Or even if it's true, we need to iron those things out. That's why we're doing these public meetings, so we can iron them out in these meetings. So that's my opinion. That's why I didn't respond to the text that I got. I simply wanted us to do it. So there we go.
Yeah, we can pull receipts for any of those items. Any of them, sorry.
And education is part of our budget, am I correct? It's a
yeah.
budget item.
It's kind of, to me, the person who requested this information, which was Mr. Smith, if you would have requested the receipts with that credit card statements and put the receipts out there on the internet for people to see, that would have been a whole lot better.
I'm happy to do that next.
But if you got a problem with any of the county staff, and there's a bunch of county staff here, there's a constitutional officer here, if you got a problem with them, why are you putting it on Facebook? Why don't you go to that individual?
So those are your words. I don't have a problem with any county staff. If we have a problem with public documents being posted in a public forum, I think we need to take a
No,
look at.
it's not that you posted them, it's how you're doing it.
Okay, I'm not posting anything. A citizen requested those documents from me and I provided them. What they do with those public documents is of their own volition.
That may be true. However,
And again, whether I request them, if Mr. Bauer requests them, if anybody requests them, they have access to that
yeah, they
same
could,
information.
yeah, but you, as a county commissioner, should have the duty, if you supply that information to somebody and they're putting crap out there like that, you should have the duty to inform them that, hey, this credit card statement, hey, this is okay, this is valid.
Well, I
But
don't
you
know
didn't.
that. And what
Because you
and
didn't
when
ask
you say
all the
crap,
information.
When you say crap, what we're talking about is a screenshot of the credit card statement, no added context. So again, if we have a problem with what's being posted in public, maybe we need to take a look at what we're doing.
I think we need to make sure that what we're posting is accurate. I haven't
it's
seen,
not accurate.
I haven't seen all of this. Let me tell you what I did, just let me tell you, is when I got this text, I thought it was a valid text. I thought it was a good question to ask, to find out. I immediately tried to call the county administrator. He didn't answer me, he was in a meeting. Then I tried to call Nancy, who's over our bookkeeping. She didn't answer me, she was in a meeting as well. So I just kept calling around until I got to someone that could answer my question, and someone did answer my question. And once they answered it, I thought, that makes sense, because I've been in business. You have too. And I know that there have been times in business where I would get partial information, not full information. So what I did was I didn't respond to this individual that sent me that, because I didn't until now until we discuss this, I didn't have an answer to give him. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with saying, I'll get you an answer and get back to them, because look at all these people. These folks here all have a job to do, and all of them handle certain areas of the county, and I have to rely on them for that information. And once you get it, then you do something with it. I didn't see all the Facebook postings, so I don't know them all. I only know the $800 one, and that's pretty much it. And when I saw this, of course, I started asking questions and found out there were more stuff posted out there as well. It's okay. They can post what they want. But I think us five, at some point, we've got to come together and work together rather than constantly doing this. I got a phone call from a guy this morning who's a preacher, and he said, we had a gentleman 15 years old in our county that passed away this morning. I don't know what got him, but something got him. And he said, you guys are arguing about every little dinky thing you can find to argue about, and our children are out here dying in front of us. And I went, you're right. I asked him to come tonight and share just what he said, and he didn't, because they're so afraid that somebody's going to pick it up and get on Facebook and eat their lunch. They won't come out and say anything. And I said the whole time, yeah, okay, I wasn't going to tell on you. I was going to leave that alone. But yeah, it was Timothy's the one that called me. But the thing about it is, it's right. It's true. This board has to come together to make things happen. Whether we build an airport or not, doesn't matter. You have the right to oppose it. Whether you've got questions about the invoices, you have a right to ask those questions. But we don't have a right to bite at each other and pick at each other and go after each other. That's just not the way. We ask people to come in here on a code of conduct, which tells them, do not point people out. Do not go after people in this room.
What was that whole introduction that we just had at the opening of this meeting then, Mr. Martin?
I don't know. You'll have to ask him.
History.
But what I'm saying is, okay, we got to come together. We've got to. And if we don't, we can't govern. All we can do is argue. I don't want to do that.
Couldn't agree more.
And what your cohort on Facebook is accusing staff of doing, you have done.
What is that?
Well, you bought,
Purchasing meals?
purchasing a meal for somebody that is not part of the county.
I believe that was reimbursed. Ms. County Clerk, could you please confirm that?
You reimbursed one of them, you
Thank
did
you.
not reimburse the other. There was 2 charges.
I've reimbursed everything I've been asked to,
I don't think so.
But you will.
happily.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let's pull ourselves back to the realization that the last couple of meetings we've had when this room was filled with our bosses. Understand me, our bosses were in this room. One of them said, this is my house, and he's right about that. Now, we do need to be able to disagree with each other agreeably. We can agree to disagree. So I disagree about the airport. I disagree about giving a developer $10 million when he said he was going to do what he was going to do, whether we gave him the $10 million or not. We shouldn't have done that. As much as I want to see a viable sports program for our children, I disagree with spending $4 million on a soccer complex and destroying a perfectly good asset and going about this the entirely wrong way as far as I'm concerned. And I think we are beholden to listening to the people who rejected a massive tax increase and being very, very careful with the fact that we may have an $84 million budget, but we need to spend it a nickel and a dime at a time. So I think that most of what we discussed in our strategic planning may have gone out the window in light of what we were informed by our bosses. And I personally wouldn't mind pulling back together and doing a real quick review of that and saying, we can't do these things. We were told by our bosses that they don't want the tax increase that it requires. And remember, we don't function, gentlemen, in a vacuum up here. people in St. Mary's have had it up past the eyebrows with their tax increases and their ambitious development of the St. Mary's Road projects and double taxation on water and sewer from an overly built sewer treatment plant, which may turn out to be a boon because it would have had to have been built eventually anyway, and we can build it cheaper. We need to cut back on any kind of expenditure we possibly can. One thing I would say on behalf of the commissioners up here, in terms of if you want to examine our personal expenses, we don't control the venues that we are compelled to go to for our training. I've been to a couple of them that personally I would have gone down the road and stayed in a different venue had I had the choice. At the per diem rate, the dollar amount that it costs to stay in some of these places, and I'll tell you what I did. I'm kind of like Martin. I modified it a little bit. I ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, and a couple of nights I went out to a Hardee's instead of eating at the restaurant in the facility, doing everything I possibly can to be aware of the fact that the citizens of Camden County don't owe me the calories, and the fact that I have 2 pairs of pants that I can still wear, that's another part of it. So I'm conservative, and Martin's conservative. I know he is. He's a tightwad. So in our defense, we don't have a choice a lot of times. I will stand the scrutiny of any kind of audit. I don't have a problem. Martin doesn't have a problem. I don't think anybody does. If our colleague down here made a mistake, he said he's going to correct it. So let's bear that in mind.
Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
I think the main reason why we're having this work session here this evening is 2 of the commissioners made some pretty strong comments on a joint letter stating that there's financial mismanagement and wasteful spending. I think our staff, they work really hard. I think that they deserve to hear the reasons why 2 commissioners stated those comments.
I agree with that.
That's not what I showed up for here. I showed up for a presentation on the budget review. I was expecting a presentation from Nancy, not a gotcha from the chairman
I
or the
think the
administrator.
staff deserve an answer.
Well,
If
I
you're
don't have-
going
I
to
don't
be that
have a printed,
inclined,
prepared statement like the chairman over here
you're going
does.
to be that inclined to make those statements.
But-
We discussed a
but
budget work
If
session.
I'm informed that that's the purpose of this meeting, I'd be happy to get my.
Apparently,
my
you
affairs
already
in.
have factual evidence, so please provide it.
I was not made aware that's what the purpose of this meeting was. I don't have a prepared statement like the chairman
It all
does.
relates to the budget.
I wrote that. You don't have to read it to me, Mr.
Oh, I'm
Chairman.
not reading it to you.
Well, I didn't come here with all my files, right? I can tell you this, though.
Where-
I can tell you this, though. So we have a $50 million jail project, right? We have an $85 million SPLOST that you and Mr. Martin represented the county and negotiated on behalf of. So the fact that we still have to take a giant bond and raise the millage rate and do all this, that falls on your shoulders. You could have had those capital improvements in SPLOST 9, but you chose to slice and dice it every which way. That's poor planning, and that's poor financial management. If
Is
you
it
knew,
wasteful? Is it
don't
wasteful
cut me
spending?
off.
Is
If
it
you
wasteful
knew,
spending?
sir, don't cut me off. If you knew that you were going to need that money, why did we slice and dice it, knowing we're going to have to come to the taxpayers to ask for an increase?
Excuse me, Commissioner, but I'm not an elected official. I don't make those
So I'll
decisions.
turn back to you, Mr. Chairman. Why did you do that?
I think I can answer that, because I was involved in those meetings as well. Is the sports complex, the one that we're talking about, the $10 million?
I'm not even talking about the sports complex. I could care less about
Well,
that.
that's
I care
plus-
about this jail that we need.
But that's plus 9, and $10 million went to it for infrastructure. So counties do it all over. When we don't have the infrastructure here, we have to we have to help people to build these things.
And it's a-
And the thing about it is, it was basically put on there at my request because we need some industry in this county. And in 4 years' time, or in 20 years' time, we lost a paper mill, we lost a bag plant, we lost Union Carbide, we lost Bear Crop. We lost 4 industries. And we haven't been able to replace those industries. So to do that, all I was thinking was, if we can't get industry, if we can't get an industry like that, that's 4,000 jobs easy. And if we can't, then we can do this. It's a private company coming in to build this, and they're going to pay taxes, they're going to fill our hotels, they're going to buy our gas, they're going to help with more SPLOST money coming off the interstate. That's what that $10 million was for. Bill Gross,
The infrastructure.
The
And
infrastructure.
the city of Kingsland will be putting in that infrastructure. the JDA handed the control of that money over to the city of Kingsland.
Right. But those builders will not be able to put up one 2x4. All they can do is infrastructure, and that's it. So that money goes there. Now, if by chance, if Bill doesn't do this, or if they don't get together, he doesn't sell them the land or whatever happens, and that deal falls through, then that $10 million goes to the jail. That's where that was what was agreed on.
When you're talking infrastructure, you're talking roads, water, sewer, all that, right?
That's right, yes.
So my dad's buying a neighborhood, or buying a house in a new neighborhood over there on Winding River, and you want to know what that developer did? They took their own money, they built their own road, and they connected to the water and sewer with their own money.
Well, and you're
So-
right, and he's right. They did say they were going to build it regardless of whether we gave them $10 million.
So again, when we're planning for the future and we're putting together a 6-year SPLOST, and we know we need this amount of money, why did we think 10 million was okay to move forward with? It just seems like really glaring oversight.
Well, it maybe, that's your opinion. I'm okay with that. That's what I'm talking about. That's what you think. I think this has to happen as soon as possible.
So when I'm asked to justify my opinion, that's just one example. But like I said, if we want to have a meeting on just that, I'll be happy to come just as prepared as the chairman, and I'd be happy to lay it all out for you.
Mr. Administrator, let's put it on the table here. What two commissioners are you talking about?
I'm referring to the letter that was penned by Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Goodman.
Okay, what did I say in that letter that indicted the staff? I don't recall ever calling any of them dishonest. I've never thought
I
that.
didn't say anything regarding the staff being dishonest. I mentioned financial mismanagement and wasteful spending. The board approved the budget, so all of the money that's within the budget is being spent. So if there is any wasteful spending, I think we need to identify that now.
I honestly can't recall anything that I said that would reflect on the staff.
Never.
It reflects on us as far as mismanagement, because they can only do what we allow them to do and direct them to do. So let me clear that up. I don't have a problem with anybody in this office, in this administration building, including yourself.
But I think part of that, though, you have to recognize that the staff is carrying out the policies and the directions of the commission. So when that happens, and then they see a letter that's penned by two of the commissioners stating that there's financial mismanagement and wasteful spending, it does impact them. Whether you like it or not, it is going to impact them.
And this was in a letter to the editor, or?
No, this was in a letter that was posted on
Hold it
social
up for him,
media.
Ben. You got it printed out in your files?
Okay, nowhere in this when it says direct reflection of poor planning and financial decisions made over time, that's us. Poor planning on the part of previous commissioners, our current term commissioners, that has nothing to do with the staff. I don't want you to draw a line between me and those people. I've never had anything except good rapport and relationships with them, and I've never had any financial questions in things that have been handled and presented. I've never needed correction that I know of.
Well, that's not my, that wasn't my point. My point was to identify wasteful spending that's been stated. So if there is
Where
wasteful
is the
spending,
wasteful spending? I know you're not in favor of the airport.
my purpose is just to try to understand where y'all perceive wasteful spending, so then we can correct and
You know,
identify
all that
and
should
correct that.
have been brought up immediately.
I do think we can do it now. At least we're talking. You know what I mean?
Well, I agree
This
with
was
that.
a budget review. Again, I was expecting a presentation. If I had known that this was what this was for, if it was properly noticed, I would have happily came prepared.
It was properly noticed. We're talking about the budget.
And you want
Where in the
and you want
budget-
cuts right now. You want cuts right now.
We've been asking for cuts since February. Where are they? Have you made any cut?
I didn't realize I had that authority independently.
Wow. You are a commissioner.
1 of 5.
Yes. And you even passed the budget. You made the motion for the budget. You have the authority to say, hey, Mr. Chairman, I want to cut this vehicle, or I don't want to buy this fire engine right now, then we can talk about it and vote on it. We did that. We did that at the meeting when we approved the budget.
Again, you had a month hearing in depth from every single department head, information that myself and the other commissioners who weren't on that budget committee were not privy to. So when you ask me in a split second, okay, what do y'all want to cut? I don't know what these people deem to be the most serious and most pressing matters. That was all held at the budget committee hearings, which myself, Mr. Goodman, did not participate in.
I get it. You know, when you first become a commissioner, and I'm still the same place, but it's almost like you're drinking through a fire hose. You've got all this information constantly coming at you from every side is coming at you, all this information.
Three of the commissioners were on the budget committee, two of us were not. Is that correct? Is that a fair statement?
I was not on it.
You were an alternative, Martin.
I was an alternate. I don't know
you did
about,
attend
I don't know about an alternative, though.
I have pictures of you in those budget committee meetings.
Yeah,
On our
I
county
was an
Facebook
alternate.
page. Yes,
When-
sir.
When Robbie couldn't make it, I went, why do you have pictures of me on a budget committee?
Ask our county Facebook liaison, whoever posted that there.
Oh. Wow.
But anyway, where in the budget do you want to make a cut?
How about the demolition of the Quonset huts? Let's cut that.
What's that?
The money that it's going to cost to demolish the Quonset huts out at the soccer complex.
We got a work session scheduled for the soccer complex coming up. We'll discuss it then.
And count on me to say that we don't need to spend that money. Thank you.
But I will tell you this, more than likely, we're gonna have to value engineer that, so you got a point.
Okay.
But, we've gotta make it ADA compliant, period. So, anyway, he's right, we do have another meeting.
This was emailed to me this morning from Miss Nancy. You know, unlike all the other retired commissioners up here, I do work a day job, so if this is the type of meeting we were planning to have, I need some kind of notice. You can't just put me on the spot and say, cut, give me a cut, give me a cut. You can say it as many times as you want, Mr. Chairman, I don't have a cut to offer you at this time and place.
Where's the wasteful spending?
You know, some of it is planned down the road as well, right? We have excess SPOS funds for SPOS 8. At one point, 4 million of that was encumbered for the soccer field renovations. Later, it was discovered that we couldn't do that, so then it was discussed that we're going to take a $4 million bond. There's some wasteful spending right there. I don't want to support that. I don't think we need to take out debt to improve those fields.
So how are we going to improve the fields?
I believe we have a motor grader that maintains the county dirt roads. I don't know why they can't
Okay, why,
plow a soccer field.
when they're out there working on your soccer field, who's going
Not
to,
my soccer field, that's the Martin Turner Memorial Soccer Field out there.
well, when they're out there, when the Public Works is working on the soccer field, who's going to be cutting the grass? Who's going to be grading the roads? You can't do that. Something will go missing.
I'd say we wait till that meeting and talk about it, because there are some, I've got some ideas as well, but we haven't even finished getting in the information together. So that, I don't think that's necessarily in what the budget, what we're talking about.
I'm not even sure what the purpose of this meeting is, other than a gotcha.
I wasn't trying to get you,
I don't believe you were, Martin.
no.
Where's the wasteful spending in the budget?
There you go.
So the whole budget is wasteful spending.
I'm sure it's in there. Again, you did not make the intent of this meeting known, so how am I supposed to be prepared for something I'm unaware of?
This is a budget meeting.
It was a budget review, not a budget cut session.
Well, again, y'all implied there's wasteful spending.
When you say budget review, I imagine that our chief financial officer is going to go and say, okay, we had this budgeted, but we had to take the rollback rate. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this here and do that there. And I'm going to present it to the commissioners in their work session so they can see what sort of cutbacks we're going to make, given that we don't have the funding.
Or-
That sounds like a budget review.
We did that when we approved the budget.
if we're gonna get down into the nitty-gritty, and you wanna know where we can make a cut, I have it on good authority, and there are staff in here who can tell me yes or no, that there are people who work in this building who are so cold in the course of a workday that they are running heaters under their desk or at their workstation while the air conditioners are ramping out. And now, most of the time, when I'm sitting in this room, I'm freezing to death. Now, granted, my thermostat is that of an almost 80-year-old man, and I've had radiation bombarding me a couple of times, and my thermostat is messed up. But I tend to be kind of on the warm-natured side, but I freeze in this room quite often, and you'll see me put this jacket on. I'm tempted sometimes to pull the hood up, but I think it would be uncharacteristic. But, yes or no, are there heaters running in this building when the air conditioning is running? Anybody want to say that?
Commissioner Goodman, if I may.
Yes?
One of the reasons why the AC is the way it is because it runs off of an antiquated software
Yes?
called an iView system. Commissioner Turner, you probably recognize that from your past work history, but that software is out of date. We can't update it. We got a quote to try to retrograde and update that system. Unfortunately, it got cut from the budget. It was over 70,000, I believe, Alex, if I recall, about 75,000. So we had proposed that in this year's budget, which would have helped out on the, the heat and AC issues there, but unfortunately it was cut.
And I don't dispute what you're saying. I've been in institutions, that sounds funny, but I've been an administrator of institutions enough to understand. But there is somewhere in this building a cutoff switch. And if we have to disconnect the software and go to the fact that somebody is designated to kind of ride her on this system, and when it gets to where it's making ice cubes in here, turn it off for a few minutes, or turn it off for an hour or two, whatever it takes to make this make sense. Because it's just a matter of money being thrown away to run air conditioning and run heaters at the same time. That's archaic thinking, but that's what it would take to be conservative. I wouldn't dare venture a guess as to what we could save if we weren't doing what we're doing. Software aside, turn the darn thing off. Thank you.
I have a question. So purchasing cards, is that taken from every line of the, obviously each department is assigned a card. Is that taken from, when that's paid back, that credit card statement every month, is that paid from the budget?
Each department.
Okay, so like the $1 million estimated in purchase card spending is already budgeted.
It would have within, basically those transactions could be office supplies, travel, training. They're all within several line items within the budget in every department.
So I see a lot of Amazon purchases, and my understanding is we don't get the SPLOST tax when we purchase things from Amazon. Is that correct? Are some
that
of those
is-
office supplies something that we could purchase locally, where we're, one, benefiting local businesses, but also collecting on that?
So I will take up for our purchasing office because they do a phenomenal job trying to benchmark prices. In fact, everything within our file room, if you ever go to it, I would encourage you to go look at it, is coded down to the pen, down to the sheet of paper. Even our printers code exactly what departments, exactly how much pages they print. And then there's a cost per page, and it goes directly to that department. So a lot of the things that we purchase from Amazon is outsourced to either local companies. We price them, we price Amazon, and oftentimes, more than not, Amazon is cheaper. Now, if there is a drive from the commission that wants us to start looking at just purchasing more local versus using Amazon, I've actually seen this conversation come up in another county quite recently, actually. I think that's something that we could probably look at. I would probably want to put like a percentage in there, though. I mean, because sometimes some of these purchases can get pretty high, depending upon how much product we're buying, like janitorial supplies, toilet paper's always up there, chemicals, different things like that. So I think, depending upon what product it is, what kind of a percentage adjustment you guys want to put on it, whether we go local or not local, that's generally the reason why, is Amazon's typically cheaper than what we can find it locally.
But we're not collecting that SPLOST tax, because we pay sales tax when we purchase from Amazon, is that correct?
I don't think so, no.
No?
We have a business
Okay.
account, yeah,
All right.
we have a business account.
All right. And so each department level purchase is approved from that department head, correct?
The purchases for the county, I think Kelsey in finance, our purchasing officer, she manages the majority of those. Fire rescue, they'll work alongside her to do those. Typically, it's those two, at least within the county side. I know the constitutional officers, they may have some of their own, but for the most part, it's between fire rescue and our purchasing officer in finance.
Amazon purchase didn't seem centralized. It was spread out amongst several cards. So I just,
If it's, yeah, I mean, if there's like small items that a department may need that they can get quickly and they order on their own, then yes, I mean, that may happen. But a lot of our larger purchases that are repetitive, like the janitorial supplies, the chemical equipment, things like that, sometimes those may come from Amazon, depending upon the pricing.
there's also a lot of the unsupervised purchases. So I mean, recently, I think at the end of last year, I believe this board, I was not a part of it at the time, upped the spending capabilities without board approval. That's something I'd like to look at reworking. Maybe if we're having to make those decisions in a public setting, we'd be able to rein in some of that spending as well.
Thank you for that. By the way, staff, I don't blame you a bit in the world for running a heater if you're cold, so please don't misinterpret what I said. I want you to be comfortable.
So getting back to what you just said, what rein in what spending are you talking about?
I mean, one example is we went from, Sean, I'm not singling you out, it's the one I can think of right off the top of my head. We went from 25,000 to 50,000.
Yeah.
The ability for him to purchase up to that amount without any kind of board approval. I mean, that just seems a little excessive to me. In the city of Atlanta, I think they're only approved up to 25,000 before they need to seek council approval. So just to.
Yeah,
compare the
and I'll say, you know, to the commissioners, it does not matter to me what limit you all set. That number has no bearing on me at all. I mean, at the end of the day, we are only going to approve any purchases that you all have already adopted and within the budget. If there are any purchases that are outside of the budget, we will always call and email you about that information and say if it's an emergency purchase for a piece of equipment, or if it's something that we need before the next meeting can occur, and therefore we will then ratify it at the following meeting.
I have gotten those calls, and I appreciate it very much, and I always try to say yes, you know, when you present the case.
Also, if I read correctly, in the financial policy, anything up to $3,000 doesn't require a purchase order. Is that correct?
That is, so in the past, we had basically field purchase orders, or purchase sheets, if you will. They were sheets that you would fill out, various amounts, less than, I think it was $100 or $500, I'm trying to remember here, but did not require a field PO. Anything above that, up to $29,999, you know, was required a field PO. Anything above $3,000 then required 3 quotes and a purchase order from finance. So I think even the field POs required 2, depending upon what funding level it was within. So one of the reasons why we got away from that was the amount of just sheer paperwork, and the cost of goods had gone up so much that the majority of our larger departments like Public Works, Fire Rescue, solid waste, various departments, basically having to get multiple, you know, quotes on items that they know that they can go directly to one vendor, and they know that that vendor is the cheapest. So it kind of expedited their work and not having to backlog them so much, spending a lot of their time calling around. Now, if we want to go back to that, I mean, that's something that the board may choose to do. It's just, I mean, it's going to require a little bit more work.
Well, and I think also we did that for expediency.
Yes.
Like, for instance, the piece of equipment that broke down at Harrods Bluff over the last week, they didn't have to they have to wait till our next board meeting to go fix it. They just went and fixed it. Am I right? You know
Yes,
what I'm
sir. So, I
talking
mean,
about?
we have equipment repairs and heavy equipment repair line items within the budget.
But 50 grand for equipment repairs is not that much money.
It depends on what kind of piece of equipment it is.
That's right. That's right.
I
It's
just,
an emergency situation. I guess you could word it that way and change it, would be fine with me. But I do know that you need to get these guys right back out on the road doing what they were doing to begin with.
So I know when Long County found themselves in dire financial straits very recently, what they did is they took every county credit card except for the one held by the fire EMS chief and cut them all up. And I'm not saying we need to go to that level of extreme, but I do think we need to have a tighter control on our financial policy on purchases being made. $3,000 without a purchase order seems a little excessive, in my opinion. Now, that may be different from people that work with, hundreds of thousands of dollars daily, but it just seems like a lot. That's a lot that we're not approving, Ben. I mean, I understand we approve a budget, but then there's purchases, there's multi-$1,000 purchases being made that it's not even coming in front of us.
So how low do you want to go? You want to go down to where we,
Meet constantly. I don't want to.
yeah, meet constantly to maybe buy a ream of paper or what?
Well, no, a
So-
ream of paper would fall under that, the old financial policy, a ream of paper would fall under. I mean, let's just go back to that and try to, we got to do something. Obviously, if we've overspent to the point where we have to raise the taxes, then we need to take a step back and
Where did we
evaluate what we're doing.
overspend at?
So first of all, when we set the budget for this year, we were already borrowing from the fund balance just to balance the budget. We knew we didn't have enough money then.
Yeah.
So,
Nice to hear
yeah,
you say it.
and I'll say too, so I mean, 9 times out of 10, every budget cycle, you are already starting in the hole immediately, and that's not uncommon in pretty much any business because of inflationary factors, growth, pay raises, insurance costs, all of that stuff. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to be in the red before you ever even begin your budget process. In regards to the utilization of fund balance, that was kind of one of our main goals in the strategic plan at the beginning of the year, was to not rely on the use of fund balance. And, unfortunately, I mean, I think that we probably could, there could have been more cuts made. That absolutely could have happened, and we could have avoided using more fund balance. But with the rollback to the millage rate, that is going to require, on the general fund at least, another $750,000 of fund balance. So now we're up to about 1.4 million on fund balance use for this fiscal year.
If there were more cuts that could have been made, what would you have made then?
I mean, that would have been up to the board at that time.
Well,
I mean,
you just said it. I imagine you have something in mind.
We were trying to keep the fund balance above 30%. I think now we're going to be around 27%.
Yeah, I think during the strategic planning, the board had set a goal of trying to achieve 40%, working at some point to achieve 40%, just because of the amount of projects that were coming up, the jail project, and obviously being a coastal community and being hurricane prone. 40% is a pretty aggressive percentage to get to. It's going to take time to get there. Obviously, the more reliance you have on fund balance, the less you're going to be able to achieve that. So, once we get the audited numbers back from fiscal year '25, and then once the fund balance that we have budgeted to use for this fiscal year, I think we're going to be closer to about the 28% mark.
And now, again, I didn't come prepared with all of my files, but I have been doing some research. So when I was looking at the percentage of county budgets that are salary and benefits for surrounding counties, I got into self-funded insurance versus those counties that were on a plan. And what I noticed is those counties that were on some sort of plan was around between 30 to 40% of their total budget was benefits, where we're at 60-something percent. Chatham County, now they do self-fund their insurance, but they're only now granted, Chatham County is a different ballgame, but 52% of their budget is salary and benefits. I mean, that's less than us. So maybe we need to look at self-funding. Maybe self-funding our health plan's not the most economical way to move forward. I don't know, Mike. But when I compare it, I'm not trying to direct it right at you, but when I compare it to other counties, and I'm looking at their percentage of benefits to their total budget, they're at 32, the 20 to 32 range.
Mike, you want to come up to the microphone, please?
Again, I didn't mean to single you out. Was not
No,
prepared
that's
for
why
this
staff is
conversation.
here, is to answer any questions we have.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith, I feel like our benefits are probably at 32 as well, but then you add the salary on top of it. I think we might be conflating two things together. Like when you're talking about Chatham County's only 32%, that's just the benefits, not the
50
salary.
They were 50-something, yeah.
Okay. And we're actually relatively lower than most of the counties that are comparable to us in the state of Georgia at 62 to 65%. If you look at the other counties that are our size in population and our size in budget, we're right on par with what that is. As you know as well as anybody, as a government, we are all about people. It's just service. We don't produce a product. We don't manufacture anything. So the largest portion of our expense should be on our people because our people are our service. We don't sell meat. We mow ditches. You know, that's kind of what the government does.
Again, like I said, I didn't come with my stuff. That's
Sure,
just
I
in
understand.
my
And likewise,
cursory
I
research.
didn't come prepared, specifically either, but I knew that this was something that would come up. But I do think that we're squarely in line with other governments our size.
Right, and
I mean, if truthfully, we probably underpay our staff. I know that's been something that's been out and about these enormous salaries that they perceive that people make, but relative to other places around us, we are actually, we're about to be behind the 8 ball again with Glenn County just did raises for their first responders and specifically their fire rescue folks, and that stuff's going to come back around. So I stand on business that we are in the right spot with what we pay our people and what our benefits are relative to our overall budget.
And a lot of our budget increase through the year has been pay increases for staff. We've done several pay studies, and we do a pay study, we look at it, and we say, oh, we need to bump everybody up. And there's also a 2.5% salary increase every year that we've got in there.
And again, this wasn't an attack on how much staff is making. It's just whether it's more advantageous to do some sort of plan like A through ACCG or with.
Sure, and I'll be happy to put together a presentation for you in the next commission meeting or two where I can show you that. I can show you what we spend with the cost of our stop-loss plans. As an insurance guy yourself, we're self-funded, but we have a limit per claim that we pay up to $150,000, and then insurance pays above that. We save millions of dollars a year compared to if we were fully insured by being self-insured and by implementing our clinic, which drastically reduces the county spend for medication, doctor's visits, and things like that. The clinic represents a fixed cost for medical cost, as opposed to sending those folks out in town to use insurance and pay an insurance premium. We save a bunch of money like that, and I'd be happy to put that presentation together for you guys in the next couple of meetings.
And we have other
really grateful
counties
for
that
that.
ask us about the clinic from time to time, how we set that up.
Yeah, I will say that we've had several counties come down and try to mirror exactly what Mike and his team do. Mike, Heather, Amy, and Kristen, and even Lance on our safety and risk management side. I mean, they do a phenomenal job, and I can tell you, I've probably had 10 to 15 counties try to call down here. We've had several meetings, myself, Mike, and Lance, and others, and trying to mirror exactly, teach them exactly what we do. And I think the clinic absolutely saves us a ton of money.
Hey, one more question.
Yes, sir.
Since we're talking about it, have you looked at the deductibles? Is there any way it's ever going to come back down since we got a new sheriff in town?
So we're talking about a different animal here. You're talking about property and casualty insurance
but
as
it's-
opposed to we're talking about health insurance.
Right, but it's still
So
money.
yes, I will tell you, and Lance could speak to this as well as anyone else, but things have gotten remarkably better, or markedly better, in our accident rate and our cost of damage rate. So there is hope that in time we would be able to get back to a more traditional deductible for liability instead of comprehensive claims. It's interesting that we have to, generally with your personal car insurance, if you have a car accident, you pay the deductible to fix your car, but the insurance company pays whatever it takes. You don't pay a deductible on the damage that you do to somebody else. Our track record had gotten so bad that we now pay a $25,000 deductible or more sometimes on the damage that we do to somebody else. So that's the key thing, that our rate of incident is steadily decreasing thanks to a lot of the things that the Sheriff's Office and Fire Rescue as well are doing to hold folks accountable. So the answer to your question is yes, I do see that coming, where we could get back to something better than these
It's
quarter
just
of
gonna take
$250,000 deductibles. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, anybody got anything else to discuss?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Excuse me,
Woke
can you hear me
everybody
okay?
up.
He does talk.
Folks that know me, I have a 24-hour rule where I don't say, think, or do anything for 24 hours because I don't want to be impulsive.
I hope I'm never in a building that catches on fire and you're the only one.
Well, in that case, we'll go out together. But I'm going to make a point, and this is, it goes back to the millage rate issues, some of the comments I got. There's several things we have got to do. And some of this is on, relates to the budget, some of it's not. There's several things in this community we have got to get past. One is the spaceport. It's done, it was bad, it's over. Let's get past it. The PSA embezzlement issues, it's done, it's passed, it's over. Let's get past it. So I'm hearing things going on tonight on this board, and I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm probably the least vocal on the board, I know that. I look out, we got staff, we got some citizens here, we got video, and we're arguing among ourselves in public. That's not a good look. If you think that it's going to be contained into this crowd, into the people looking on the video, if you think it goes, if we think that's where it stops, it's not. It goes beyond the borders of the community. People that come into this community don't think they don't look at political issues. If we're upside down as a board, we can't get along, that's not helping us at all. So I'm going to say this, let's challenge us five. We got to challenge ourselves to figure out how we can get along. If we're going to scratch each other's eyes out, let's do it behind the scenes. And I'm not talking about lack of transparency here, but some of this stuff needs to take place behind the scenes instead of in public. It's just not a good look. So I'm going to challenge all five of us, and I'm one of them. So don't think I'm singling out you other four against me, but we got to figure out a way to get past the environment we're working under right now. And that's going to take all of us. And that's all I got to say.
Robbie, I have a great deal of respect for what you just said, but I don't have a problem in the world with being indicted in front of everybody in here. If I've done something wrong, call me out on it and let me have the ability to call anybody else out, because I tell you, at the end of the day, I'm going to love you just as much as I ever did. I don't dislike anybody up here. I won't get Christmas cards from most of you, and that's fine with me. But we need to just be open and honest about this, and I don't like the idea of going behind closed doors and
no.
airing issues.
No.
Let's put it out there.
No, that's not what I'm
When I'm
saying.
through doing this job, if somebody else comes along that wants to do it better, I might vote for them myself. If you want to replace me, the citizens can replace me. I don't have a problem with that. If I've not done the job, so be it. I'll live just as long, probably longer.
Let's make it clear. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying we need to do all this behind the scenes. I'm just saying the backbiting, the eye scratching, the gouging in public is not cool, as far as I'm concerned.
No, I don't feel bad, nobody's fighting me.
No, I'm not singling you out.
You
I'm just
missed
saying
the
is-
opening
is-
of this meeting.
if-
But this is exactly the type of dialogue I think the public needs to hear. When we come up here during a regularly scheduled meeting and there's no dialogue and we're just voting yes or no, they have no idea what we're even voting on half the time, and that's where I think the dialogue becomes important. And we do need to have these types of conversations, even the difficult ones.
I guess my point is, what we're doing now does not look good to the public,
Well,
to anybody.
that gets back to when we had the tentative budget or tentative millage rate increase. Do you even know what tentative means?
Yes, it means it's not quite official, but it's going to be tentative.
Yeah. It doesn't mean proposed.
Right. Well, when we place a legal advertisement in legal organ that says the Board of Commissioners has tentatively adopted a rate, but that action hasn't taken, I take issue with the language.
Well, then you got to take it up with the state because that was state language. But
Or maybe it's our interpretation of the state statute that needs to be readdressed.
well,
I can address that specifically. That is directly from the statute. That is statutory form language.
Correct, correct. And law is normally pretty literal, correct?
When you take it directly from the statute, it is from the statute. The form is provided in the statute.
And that
It's what
statute says that the board tentatively adopted the rate. Well, that would require an action of the board,
If the statute provides.
which means we jumped the gun when we
That
post
means,
that advertisement.
tentative means there was no action
If the
done.
statute provides the form to use, then that's the form we use to provide the notice. It's not that we're changing the language, it's not that we're interpreting something, but that is the language from the statute directly.
You don't
to
provide the
use.
notice until the board takes that action.
There cannot be a meeting without a form publication.
We were able to call a work session today, right? We could have had the proposed millage rate up there. We could have made a motion to tentatively adopt the rate, and then we could have published the advertisement saying that we tentatively adopted the
We could address the rest of
rate.
that in the appropriate legal forum, and the responses will be filed shortly. But
Looking forward
that
to it.
language is part of the statute.
But anyway, at the meeting where we set the budget, that is when we would have negotiated about what the millage rate would have been set at. And like I told you on the phone, it was never going to be that high amount. It would probably end up being something less.
It shouldn't have taken place on the phone. It should have taken place in an open meeting.
And I will state that anything else further related to this can be reserved to any litigation discussion.
I believe the chairman took litigation off the executive session 2 minutes ago because he didn't want to talk about it, but now he does, apparently.
Specifically, I can address that issue too. I removed litigation. I asked that that be removed because that specific issue cannot be discussed in an executive session based on the conflict of interest. So that can be addressed. And again, if you have a question about legal issues, because I am the county attorney, you can specifically address it to me because that is my job.
I've seen your work. Thank you.
And the conflict of interest is, to dumb it down a little bit, is you can't sit on both sides of the fence. You're either on one side or the other.
I believe I was on the right side. Thank you.
So, well, we'll see you in court. All right, let's get off of that and get back to the budget. Where else?
I've been too busy talking to you. I haven't even had a chance to look at it.
Really? You had since, when we started budget session started in February?
Again, when you publish a notice for a work session on a budget review, not a budget cut session, I imagine that our chief financial officer has taken the budget and they've made the adjusted cuts to fit within our new rollback rate, not a gotcha session on, hey, what do you want to cut right here, right now?
Where's the wasteful spending?
$10 million for a road for Funland? I mean, that $10 million for the road for Kingsland Funland could have been put towards the $50 million projected jail project. We have an $85 million splost. Poor planning, poor financial management.
Well, if you say that, then you're saying that not only did we fail to plan, but the three cities and the PSA.
That's exactly what I'm saying, yes, sir. You know, the county, if you take a look at the splost law, we have an obligation to meet to negotiate, but we don't have an obligation to come to an agreement. Now, the excuse will be, well, the cities won't support the splost. Maybe not the city governments because they're not getting their bread and butter, but the city voters, knowing that we're funding those capital improvements that need to be funded, will fund it because they're already voting for a splost. They don't. So yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, Chairman.
So I guarantee you that, that city of St. Mary's definitely needs a SPLOST. So, but anyway, SPLOST is done, it's a done deal. We're not gonna go back and negotiate that. We're talking about our budget.
Okay, we're talking about our budget. You're asking what poor financial planning and poor financial decisions, I believe, led us to this point with our budget currently. That's right there. Those are for capital improvements, that SPOS project, right? If we knew that we had these dire capital improvements that we needed to make, we should have planned accordingly. Not got it passed, tell the voters we're not going to raise their taxes, and turn around and ask them to raise their taxes, especially when we foresaw that coming to begin with. I mean, we should have been honest with the voters, and we wouldn't be in this position.
I was honest with the voters, but you can say whatever you want to say, but, you know, all along with the jail project, you know, I stated in this room and in the SPLOST negotiations that the $10 million is not going to be enough for the jail. That was stated all along. So, but anyway, SPLOST is a done deal, it's fixed. There's no going back renegotiating that SPLOST.
Oh, I know how that works. It's just at the beginning of this meeting, I was asked to tell you what I believe was poor financial planning and poor financial management, and that's what I believe constitutes both.
I got it. And again, you know, that was an agreement between not only the county, but the 3 cities and the,
You could have
And
come
the
to no
PSA.
agreement, and statutorily, they would have received some sort of percentage at the tail end of everything. I mean, you didn't have to come to an agreement.
well, that's not negotiating good faith with the cities, but if the cities are successful, the county will be successful with that SPLOST as well. So,
That's a big if, when it could have been a sure bet on getting that jail fully funded.
well, I don't think it's a sure bet. But, like I say, getting back to the budget we got to work with. Is there any cuts y'all want to make?
I'd love to have another work session where we can actually dive into this, if you'd like. Again, that was not the purpose of this meeting, and if it was, it wasn't clearly stated.
Well, I say we cut the animal control for now.
Awesome. I say we cut the soccer complex improvements for now. I say we cut the airport for now. How much have we spent on consultants for that airport to date?
I don't know the exact dollar figure, but I think it's just north of $100,000.
Thank you.
This is a work session, we can't take any votes on anything.
That's what I was going to say.
And if I may, just, you know, I think one of the purposes of this is to identify a plan moving forward, if any, on how are we going to fund the annual debt payments for the jail. So again, if you're borrowing 39 million, that's going to approximately take almost 1.5 mils to fund. That's almost $3.1 million for 20 years based off of an approximate 4.5%, 5% interest rate. So that's the bigger, I think truthfully, that's the bigger issue, is how are we going to plan to fund that accordingly?
The only way I see of being able to fund that is a tax increase next year. Now, we can delay the jail, but eventually we got to pay for that jail.
Why can't we take the 10 millions that we've already, the 10 million that we've already allocated for the jail project over the next 6 years of SPLOST 9 and do what we can with it and fund the rest of it on SPLOST 10? Why can't you do that?
Well, if
You're
you-
not going to have a jail built in 6 years unless you take out this giant bond.
So that's actually a good question. So if we do take out a bond to, fully construct a new, sheriff's office and jail, the bonds have to be spent within 3 years, so 36 months. And then, of course, you've got your annual principal and interest payments that you have to make. The jail process itself would take 2 to 3 years to build. So depending upon when you all choose to start that, we are going to have that money on hand to be able to pay the contractor and the architect and the project manager corporation, because we're gonna have to outsource that to, you know, complete that project. We're not just gonna be able to continue to delay and delay. The contractors are not, you're not gonna get a contractor in here that's just gonna say, hey, give me an IOU for the next 10, 15 years while we wait on SPOS collections. It's just not gonna happen.
Just break down the scope of work, start with the site plan. We don't know where we're putting it. We haven't purchased the land. We don't have any design plans. We're not even ready to start building a jail.
It's about $175,000 per bed. So if you build a 100-bed facility, it's not going to accommodate what we need now. So, I mean, that alone is over what we have budgeted within the SPOS 9. And then you talk about classification within the jails, and the sheriff, I don't know if you want to elaborate on any of that, but I mean, we're already having issues with classifications now. Some of it's due to what's going on within the DA's office, but a lot of it is just in the limited capacity that we have within the jail already. There's other counties around us. The sheriff's office, the sheriff actually himself talked about all the counties that are around us, some smaller, some larger. Some counties as small as Bacon County have almost a 200-bed facility. And they're only a 12,000 population county. And then there's other counties like Liberty, and I'm trying to remember these numbers, Sheriff, but I believe Liberty County is looking at building a 600 to 700-bed facility, I think is what you said. 600-bed facility. Bryan County's looking at building almost a $100 to $120 million facility. In fact, I think the Bryan County chairman was quoted recently stating that they would have to more than double taxes to be able to pay for their jail if they so chose to build a jail of that size. So I think you could try to trim it down as much as you want to, but I think if you're wanting to spend the money wisely, you're going to have to build pretty much close to a 300-bed facility.
Yeah, you got to plan for the future.
So I've actually looked at the Sheriff's Office Association data, and they've been collecting intake reports, and Deputy Fewalks had helped me understand the information a little better, but essentially from 2008 to September of 2025, the percentage of the population housed in our jail has actually gone down. So we've had a 12,000 population increase over that time, over the last 10 years, but we actually see a lower percentage of the people that are being housed in the jail of our total population. So the governor's Office of Budget and Planning sees us at 70-something thousand people by the year 2045. So what you're looking at there is if you go by the 3.1 beds per thousand population algorithm, right? If you use that number, you're still only looking at 250 beds. That's 50 beds at $145,000 saved. I mean, there's things we can do. There's a lot of planning involved. When I looked at the report from the jail study, what I saw was a lot of information about why our jail was no good, but no information on how they calculated what our bed capacity should be for the future. I think that's just kind of a number we're looking around at other counties and guesstimating what we should do, but there is a science behind it. The Department of Justice has actually published ways to gather that information and come to that conclusion. So I didn't see that information in the jail study. I think there's a lot of unknowns that we need to consider before we just jump on building a 300-bed facility.
One thing we sure don't want to do is have the Justice Department come in here and tell us we need to build a jail. Our jail is in bad shape. We need to build a jail. Any other topic?
Yeah. If you'd like, I can bring those figures to the work session on the jail. I think it's actually really insightful.
Well, whatever we do with the jail, we need to build it for the future, have enough property to add on. The jail will be built in such a way that it'll be easier to add on in the future, so.
But if we do want to have a work session on budget cuts, I'm happy to do some further diligence and come back to you with some recommendations, Chairman.
That's fine. You've had how many months?
I didn't realize.
But
Go
the
ahead.
thing is, you know, you want to get back to that. You wrote this,
I did.
which alludes to there should be budget cuts in there.
Could you read that line for me? I mean, don't put words in my mouth, Mr. Chairman. You've been doing that all meeting.
If you say there's wasteful spending, which is in here, where is it? And don't keep going back to the SPOS. I want to talk about the regular
It
budget.
is wasteful to take out a $39 million bond when you had the opportunity to collect the exact amount of cash you needed to build it. That is wasteful spending. It is pissed away dollars.
That's your opinion. Of course, I don't think SPOS, you know, if you put, maybe if you put the jail on there, you know, 100% funding, it would have passed.
You can put a
Maybe
single,
not.
there was no reason to chop and screw it. You can put a single item on a SPOS. There was no reason to do what we did. Well, what y'all did.
There was reasons, but it was a joint negotiation between the county and the 3 cities and the PSA. So we can keep rehashing that if you want to, but we need to move on, talk about the budget we got to work with. Because again, the SPOS is set. Now, Mr. Goodman wants to cut the airport. We can do away with animal control eventually. You know, that'll.
When does
that'll-
when does the county and the municipalities meet to rehash the service delivery strategy?
It's actually coming up, I believe, next year. I believe we'll start that next year. So generally, the service delivery strategy, for those of you that may not know, basically what that came about in the early mid-'90s where there were double taxation happening within the cities and counties. Basically, the county or cities may have been duplicating services over a certain geographical location. So Georgia created the Service Delivery Strategy Act, basically where the county and cities had to meet. It used to be every 5 years, now it's every 10 years, and they would have to review exactly who is providing what service in what geographical area. They had to provide maps, and then what funding source was providing that service. It could be one funding source, it could be multiple or all funding sources. It just depends on what kind of service it is. So generally speaking, the cities, you know, they'll provide police, fire, and then obviously roads and bridges. St. Mary's has their own library. But for us, for the county, what we do is we provide a few county-wide services. One of those is the animal control, another is mosquito control, another is EMS. All the ambulances are county-wide. So all of those are identified within the SDS. You can find it on DCA's website.
Correct.
Pretty informative document. It tells you exactly who is providing what service and where. I will say that you probably have to, you know, maybe call some of those jurisdictions depending upon what parks. Like I know there's been questions that have been coming up into the parks, like is my park in the unincorporated section of the county or is it in a city? So, I mean, things like that, you're going to have to call the respective jurisdictions. But for overall purposes, the SDS would outline all of that. And I mean, if the commission wants to look at trying to push some of that money back to the cities,
Well, it sounds like we can't afford to keep running. I mean, if we don't fix our, we're collecting mostly animals from the south end of the county and the municipalities.
well, that's, yeah, I mean, below
You've got Jared and his wonderful team running back and forth from Woodbine down to the cities every day, which isn't too, I'm sure is not very efficient. And we only have a 12 kennel facility, and we're not going to have $3 million to build another animal control facility. It sounds like we can't afford to provide the level of service that we want to. And it might be something we have to push back onto the cities.
And yeah, so everything exit 7 south, basically from 17 east, I mean, that's about 65 to 70% of the county's population. And I mean, that is a large portion of where we spend a lot of our time with animal control. It's just because of the amount of the population there. And, you know, we have it on pretty good authority where we've got people in other counties around us that probably bring abandoned pets over here, and it's very unfortunate that that happens. I think if we had responsible pet owners, we would have no need for an animal control department. You know, I think that's the same for DFACS. If we had responsible parents, we probably wouldn't have a need for a DFACS office as well. So It's unfortunate that we have to provide that level of service, but it's there. If the commission so chooses that you all want us to explore that, then we would obviously need the direction from you all to do that. But I will say that is a pretty big uphill battle to take on.
Do any of the municipalities pay the sheriff's office for housing their inmates?
They would argue that they pay it through their general fund tax.
Oh, I'm sure they would. That seems to be their argument a lot.
But
I-
that's the only way.
Right, well, no, but I've seen other counties that are getting paid from their municipalities.
And it,
And again, when the majority of these detainees are coming from the municipalities, we might need to take a step back and look. I mean, we have we have mandated services. We run a courthouse. We fund the sheriff's office. We do code enforcement. We run the tag office. Those are county responsibilities. I understand that, but if, most of the burden is coming from the municipalities, whether everyone pays countywide taxes or not, I believe they need to pay for the increased burden that the municipalities provide.
When I get the question the most is, what's the major difference between county and cities? The biggest, probably the easiest explanation that I can give is that the county commissioners are responsible for 100% of appropriations, but truthfully, they probably only control 50% of it because those are their departments. Everything else is either state mandated through judicial, constitutional offices, or state agencies. In regards to public safety, I mean, another good example is E911, and we're getting ready to take on Next Gen 911, and that's going to be a big lift, and hopefully the state's going to pitch in quite a bit of money to all the local governments for the Next Gen 911 systems. But we're subsidizing 911 heavily. A lot of that has to do with the 911 phone fee. So everybody that's got a cell phone or a landline, they pay $1.50 per line for that fee, but it's not enough, and the majority of the counties are having to subsidize, some as high as 40% to their 911 service. So I think we're at about 33% is our subsidy to 911 for this fiscal year. Changes every fiscal year, but this fiscal year it's quite high, and that's something that actually ACCG and several of the counties are looking at, working on legislative priorities. I mean, there are some unfunded mandates that we receive from the state that do affect us with our budgeting, but overall, I would say that the staff does a phenomenal job at trying to be mindful. There's a lot of the people here, there's a lot of people that are online, a lot of people that aren't here that oftentimes I see spend their own money, whether it's washing a county vehicle that they have, whether it's buying their own food, even if they're at a conference, even if they're traveling. I've seen some of them even fill up county vehicles using their own money. So I think there's a lot of things that, unfortunately, the public does not see that is oftentimes not recognized. And I think our staff, they really do a phenomenal job doing everything that they can and trying to be mindful. Are there areas of improvement? There's always areas of improvement. That's in any business, that's in any organization. And I think that we will continue to refine those, but ultimately we need, if there's a perception of wasteful spending, we need to know so that we can correct that action.
Mr. Chairman,
You want to repeat myself?
I've got one idea. Why, with the animal control, I had just come on as a commissioner when all that happened and went down, and they told us we had to do our own. They were going to do their own. Why don't we reach back out to them again and see if we can't work with them and maybe improve their facility? Wouldn't cost nearly $3 million, that they could handle a larger capacity, just to see if we could work with them and work with the Humane Society.
I spoke to them on our first meeting here. They were in the audience, and I had asked them about actually that same question. At the time, they were heavily against
Very
entertaining
much.
that.
I did the
But
same.
It's been 10 months, maybe.
Yep. And I have already spoken to some strategic people that have connections with their board that knows them. Their board wouldn't talk to me. I tried to talk to them as well. They referred me to a lawyer. But that's way back, and I agree, that's 3 years ago, so things happen. And if we could help them somehow with their facility so they could handle more, might be a good discussion to have. May not go anywhere, but it's worth giving it a shot, yeah.
If we'd like to find ways to maybe reduce the budget as well, obviously we were planning for taking over the maintenance responsibilities from the PSA, and we got a taste of what that might cost at the last work session. Have we considered maybe contracting out the mowing of the parks as well?
So I've been here for 8 years. We've done both. We've contracted out and we've done it in-house. Every time we've contracted it out, the commission has always seen that the cost has been increasingly higher and the service levels have been either the same or less than what we've been able to provide on our own. If y'all want us to continue to explore contracting out those services, I will just say that I think it's just going to continue to go up and up and up, because more often than not, when you do contract out, unless if it's like a major corporation like Brightview Services, who we've actually used in the past to do our landscaping around all of our county facilities, if they don't have the equipment or manpower on hand, they're going to want a guaranteed minimum of at least 3 years of operations, because they're going to have to purchase all the capital equipment, they're going to have to hire all the manpower. And I'm just stating that if it's a company that's being created, or if it's a company that does not have the current staffing levels or the equipment to be able to take us on, because you're talking, and I'm assuming you're talking more specifically about the parks.
I did some country boy math, right? So if I'm looking at most of these parks, 3 acres or less, right, roughly. I was eyeballing the Woodbine Lions Club on Friday. Roughly 3 acres. I mean, if you do $1,000 a park, times 10 parks, times 4 weeks, times 12 months, I mean, we're at 500-something thousand versus 900-something. That's a company, again, you mean, it doesn't have to be one large, you could have multiple contracts and break it up.
I don't know that you'd
If
be
they
able
have
to.
their own salary, you know, they're paying their own employees and they have their own equipment. I don't mean to keep talking over you, sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I don't know that you can break it down quite simple as that. The main reason is because, unfortunately for us, the 13 or so parks that we're going to have to maintain are so far spread out, you're going to have to count into a lot of just logistical timing and just transport. I mean, unfortunately, the guys and gals that are going to probably be doing this work are just going to be sitting behind a vehicle getting windshield time. That's the sad reality. When if we had a consolidated area, then there would not be any of that. Like if you had like a North Glen complex, or like Waycross has, or even Brantley County has, where, you know, yeah, you may still have some of these passive parks that are out there, but you got a centralized location where all your recreational activities are occurring. That cuts down your maintenance costs tremendously. You're not having to have many crews just run around the county constantly, just wearing and tearing down on vehicles, trailers, burning fuel time, all of that. So I think, you know, we can calculate everything down to the cost of, you know, per mile per vehicle, and, you know, the hourly rate that it's going to take those people to travel that amount of distance, and how much time they're actually going to be able to cut each park. We've been able to do that math before, and we can continue to do that. But I think once you start contracting it out, I think your numbers are just going to continually increase. And there's been case study after case study after case study where they've looked at the privatization of local government services, and in some ways it works, but it generally only works short term. It's been showcased within Sandy Springs, where Sandy Springs literally outsourced every single component of their city government except administration. They had 5 employees, that was it. And they outsourced every single thing that they did. After 10 years of doing that, they brought every service back in-house, with the exception of a handful, and I think they actually outsourced that through the county. But, you know, those are just other case studies that I've been privy to and just reviewed in the past. And so, I mean, we actually outsource mosquito control right now. It's a phenomenal operation, doing great jobs. I know that we get a few complaints every once in a while, but most of those are pretty mediated pretty quickly. And I will say, if anybody are having issues with mosquitoes, the company that we use is actually pretty top-notch. They can do aerial. They also do lab testing out of Brunswick. They actually test the mosquitoes. We have gravid traps that they set all over the county. They monitor the rain that we receive. We get a nice 20, 30-page report every month over what they've done, the amount of mosquitoes that they receive. So I think a lot of it has to depend on the company that you choose, the service level expectation that you all as a commission sets, what you all want to achieve. I think, my understanding, whenever this whole park discussion came about, is that we want to try to mirror our neighbors to our north and south. So like Nassau County, Glenn County, we want to try to become more premier parks. And, based off of the budget that we have or what we're going to be able to work with, we're not going to be able to get there anywhere soon. And just the capital, so I'm just going to expand on something real quick. So just the capital cost of, developing some of these parks, you're not talking tens of thousands of dollars, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So recently, for this Woodbine Lions Park that we have here, we just got the bids back for the fencing for just 2 fields, Little League fields now, not big fields, Little League fields. $100,000 for fencing is what we just got back. Those were competitive bids. Now granted, they're black vinyl coated fencing, but you can go back to the galvanized fencing and you're not gonna cut $50,000 out. The same linear amount of fencing is gonna be there. So my point of all of that is to say that parks cost a lot of money whenever you get into capital improvements. Just the playground equipment, if you go to Cornelia Jackson, I know a lot of people question, you've spent over $300,000 at that park? Absolutely, it costs that much. Everything we've done has been competitive bid. Playground equipment, just a small little structure, $100,000. It blows my mind too. But a lot of it has to come down to liability because that company, in order for them to have their name stamped on that equipment, they're gonna make sure that they charge you enough to cover themselves in the event that there's an injury to a child. That's one of the reasons why it's so expensive. I didn't know a slide could cost over $10,000. And I'm not talking about a big slide, a little 6-foot slide. So when we talk about parks, I know there's $10 million allocated out of SPLOST 9, but truthfully, that $10 million is not going to get you that far. Once you talk about redoing the fields, conservatively, just to redo a small Little League field, full lighting, irrigation, turf, fencing, everything else that's needed, it's easily $150,000 per field, easily.
Then you gotta have a properly trained staff to maintain it. Because right now, you go look at our fields, sure, they look green, but that's because the weeds are green. There's not a whole lot of grass out there.
Now again, I'm talking like a pretty premier type field. And I think that's, if we're a county of 60,000 people, we have counties, and it's embarrassing to say this, but we've got counties that are half our size or even less than half our size that have much nicer parks than what we do. And I don't like it. Our citizens don't like it.
Our parks have been underfunded for many, many years.
Colquitt County, I'll just give you an example. Colquitt County, on the phone with their manager a couple weeks ago, they spend over $2.5 million just to fund their parks a year. Wayne County, I think I mentioned this at one of the last meetings, is spending over $800,000 a year to maintain 5 parks. That's just maintenance.
And we've got over 15.
So, when we talk about the service level that you all expect, we're trying to budget towards that. Now, again, if that's not the service level that is expected of us to be able to achieve, we can back off of that. And I think we're having to do that for this first year. But moving forward, I'm hoping that we'll develop a plan to where we not only meet the board's expectations, but also the citizens' expectations.
Well, and it's one thing to aspire to have parks like our neighbors to the north and the south. We have an $85 million budget. Nassau County has a $300-something million budget. To put it into perspective for the citizens, their funding mechanisms are vastly different than ours.
So that's a good point. So Glenn County was in the same position that we were in 20 years ago when they built the North Glen complex. Roughly the same population size. They went ahead and took the initiative. I used to play rec ball up there. I remember playing at the fields there. And they took the initiative to build a 150-acre park, consolidated all of their recreational services to where it was pretty much everything in-house. They have a couple, like Ballard Parks. I don't know if you've ever been up to Ballard. They got those. I think that's where they kind of do a lot of their little league stuff. But the North Glen complex, it operates every single recreational aspect that they have. and they're not spending a lot of windshield time running around to all the passive parks. We got 26 parks in this county. And I'm not saying any of them need to go away, but I'm just telling you that if you're going to continue to maintain those and to upgrade and enhance those, it's going to cost a lot of money.
I just don't know where we put something like that. I heard from Robbie at the last meeting that the North End folks aren't going to drive to the city to use the parks. So I just,
It was funny, and that's another good point. So whenever the North Glen complex was built, a lot of the people on the island, you know, they had the big issue of, are the folks on the island going to go all the way to North Glen? Because it's about a 45-minute ride, depending upon where you live on the island. They do. Shockingly, they do. We had the same issues whenever we built the DPH building down right across from the hospital. The majority of the data from DPH showed that the majority of the people north of Exit 7 were going to the clinic in St. Mary's. I mean, those were the numbers that DPH provided to us.
But getting to the parks, you know, they've been neglected for so long, it's going to take a lot of money to get them back to where they need to be. And if you got a child that's playing a sport, you want that child to play on a decent field that doesn't have armadillo holes on it and stuff like that. So we need to spend the money to upgrade these parks somehow, some way. Now, also part of SPLOST, you know, Mr. Boatwright was talking about, you know, North Glen. We actually proposed doing a master park, not kind of in the middle of Kingsland and Woodbine somewhere, doing a master park. But the cities didn't want to do that. They wanted to spend that money upgrading the existing parks. And we need to do it. They need to do it. The only parks that we have that have any type of organized recreational sports is Howard Peoples, and that's T-ball, and the soccer complex. And there's 800 kids out there sometimes, some seasons, for soccer. So that stuff needs to be done.
I misspoke earlier, Martin. I'm not against completely doing the soccer project. Obviously, we need to bring it up to ADA compliance, but that soccer complex, I think the restroom there is one of the only in the county that has heating and cooling. Yeah, I mean, it's actually one of the nicer parks in Camden County, given what features it has.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to it, we can value engineer that one, but we've got to make it so it's a good park. You know, the irrigation's gone. I know we're not supposed to be talking about it now, but the irrigation is shot out there. The grass is not good grass. There are holes all in the field. The parking's we got to have that parking, at least 250 cars, according to what they told me, for that many people in and out. Those are the main issues. Those are the ones that we can really focus on. We can bypass the restrooms and the concession stand and leave it like it is, I think. But there's a way to do it. I mean, but we got to talk about it.
But there's a lot of misinformation out there that, you know, the county's only doing this park. What about my park? Well, their park is actually, say, the St. Mary's Rec Park. We as a county are not going to spend money to upgrade St. Mary's Park or Woodbine's Park. Now, we do have, the county owns some parks in Woodbine and Howard Peoples in Kingsland. We're going to upgrade those parks. But the Woodbine field here in Woodbine, they've got SPLOST money set aside for it in SPLOST 9. They also got, I think, $150,000 in SPLOST 8 that they could spend today on upgrading that park. So the county is doing its part. We are doing our part to start upgrading these facilities. Now, the cities, they need to step up and start working on it too. But for SPLOST 9, we got to collect the money first before anything can be done.
And as far as that goes, I mean, I'd love to have a pristine park where people would want to come, where Disney would want to come and do this. But I was in business for 20 years. I didn't even buy a vehicle until I had the money in my hand. So I get it. I ended up with what, 20 vehicles, $2.5 million a year in a business, but I got it one bite at a time, and that's the way we did it. That way we didn't go into debt. We can do the same here.
But if you've got a decent facility where you can host tournaments,
That's right.
that brings in outside people.
That's the goal.
Travel teams and stuff like that, and that puts butts and seats in restaurants and heads on beds in motels.
Yep.
Because my grandson, he was on the PSA swim team. Of course, they didn't have it this past summer, unfortunately. But they traveled over to Colquitt County for a state swim meet. And when I went to book a room, there was no rooms available in Moultrie or Colquitt County. I had to get a room in Tift County. So if we could do something like that, that would bring in your SPLOST
Well,
monies.
I'm glad you brought up tournaments because I've been told by people associated with the soccer club that, you know, they need improvements there so they can start hosting those tournaments there. But my understanding also with the Florida Georgia Sports Park is that's intended for sports
It's private.
tournaments. So I do believe that we need to maybe focus our support on one or the other.
Or both. mean, we
Well,
can
what's
talk
the
about
point?
it.
Why are we going to do both if you're going to have?
They're two different things, but I mean, I don't want to be here till midnight, but I think we've got a work session just on that.
Yes, sir.
But it is two different things going on.
Sounds like duplication to me.
One's private and the other one is
Well,
us.
Private with public funds?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
there's
exactly
private-public partnerships all over the
over.
time.
right. Yeah.
But getting back to the youth of the county, there's soccer games. I think my granddaughter's got a soccer game Thursday. My grandson had a football game yesterday. So these park improvements needs to be done for the youth. Now, the sports tourism thing, maybe our youth could use it, some during the week, but on the weekends, when most of our youth is playing ball, that's going to be for tournament play. It's not going to be for our local kids.
That's the private. But we can talk about it. I don't want to stay till midnight. Do you?
I would say my focus would be the local kids, not the other kids.
Well, to support the local kids, we need to improve these parks. And like I said, the only park that we have, that the county owns, where there's a large group of recreational use, is the soccer multi-sport complex. Otherwise, we could go out and build a new one, but that's going to be millions of dollars.
Certainly not advocating for that.
So if you want to support the youth, we need to fix these fields.
One more thing. I will tell you how archaic that place is. It blew up a transformer and the panel box about 2 weeks ago? And we had to put a generator out there for the weekend so those kids could play and have a bathroom that was actually functional. So it's pretty bad shape, just
I was
like
out there this
everything else.
weekend, and that did seem to be fixed.
Yeah,
there
they
was
got
no
it
gen-
fixed.
Yeah.
Cost about $7,000-8,000, I think. I can't remember, but yeah.
All right, anything else y'all want to discuss?
The only thing I would like to add is if it's going to be looked back on later and said, well, I gave you the opportunity at this meeting to make cuts here and now, I do want to make it known that I would like to have a work session at a later date where I can be more prepared to offer those recommendations.
Well, like I stated earlier, this is the 7th time that we've had a work session on the budget. Any of us 5 could have made any cuts or suggested any cuts at any time during that process. So,
I know that we set the budget before we actually get the full digest, and it does kind of make it hard to budget. But maybe we should take a look at how we're forecasting what kind of revenue we're going to be bringing in before we set the budget. Because if we had been discussing a 14 mils millage rate when we were setting the budget, I'm sure we could have found some more cuts expeditiously.
all through our strategic planning process, you know, when we brought up the jail or anything else, hey, this is going to be a funding bomb. This is going to require funding. It's going to require the board to make a decision on how to fund it,
No, yes, sir. I know.
all through that process.
Maybe I'm misreading you, but when you keep referring back to the strategic planning, you say it as if we were all in agreement throughout strategic planning, and that just wasn't the case.
We don't have to be all in agreement. Correct. But the majority of the board wanted these projects. They were either top priorities or high priorities. So that means the vast majority of us approved these projects during the strategic plan. And all of them, hey, we're gonna need funding.
Oh, I don't disagree with you. I was there for that. Yes, sir.
But as far as any cuts, you know, like I said, I keep repeating myself, all of us had the chance to make any cuts at any time throughout the whole process.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Martin wants to stay a little longer, so I want to bring up a subject that needs detailed exploration before we make a commitment to it. But I think we need to look at the gun range in terms of benefit versus cost, and it probably will require a work session in its own right, because I don't want to throw the bathwater out with the baby, but it appears to me that it might have reached the maturity of its cycle in which it can be self-supporting with those enthusiasts who want to use it, and with advertising for surrounding areas to come and use it. But if I'm not mistaken, we are spending a boatload of money supporting the gun range for a very small population of people who are using that facility. And I think we even bought a vehicle recently. There seems to be no end to what the needs are. So I'd like to propose that we look at that in depth at a future meeting.
We do have a work session scheduled for the gun range, and we have not purchased a vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
I think that was for solid waste that you're referring to. That was purchased recently.
And one of the items, we did a budget amendment, if you remember, we did a budget amendment, I think, the last meeting. That budget amendment was mainly because of health care costs for an employee's family. Other than that, we're getting very close to being revenue neutral on gun range. Yeah, we got a budget coming up on another DNR grant for the 5 stand. So,
Thank you. Did that protract it long enough for you, or you want me to bring something else up? No. You good? Good.
all right, anything else? All right, hearing none, we'll close this work session. Thank y'all.